From darkness, she took out the threat. Part 1. The desert wind carried sand and the smell of diesel fuel as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her grip on the M4 sniper rifle. The convoy of 6 armored vehicles stretched out below her position on the rocky ridge, their headlights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness like knives. She had been watching them for the past hour, her trained eyes scanning every shadow and movement in the valley below. Maria had volunteered for this mission when command received intelligence about a supply convoy moving critical medical supplies to forward operating bases. The route was known to be dangerous, with reports of insurgent activity increasing over the past month. 3 convoys had already been hit in this sector, and command wasn't taking any chances. Her radio crackled softly in her ear. Overwatch, this is Convoy Leader. We're approaching Checkpoint Alpha in 15 minutes. Any movement in your sector? Maria pressed the transmit button on her radio. Convoy Leader, this is Overwatch. Negative on hostile movement. Road appears clear for the next 2 kilometers. Maintain current speed and formation. She had been in this position since 200 hours, carefully climbing the steep ridge in complete darkness. The climb had taken her nearly 3 hours, moving slowly and silently to avoid detection. Every step had to be calculated, every sound minimized. Her ghillie suit helped her blend with the rocky terrain, but it was her years of training and experience that kept her invisible. The M4 sniper rifle felt familiar in her hands. She had carried this same weapon through 2 previous deployments, and it had never let her down. The scope was zeroed perfectly, and she had confirmed her range cards multiple times during the night. From her elevated position, she could cover nearly 4 kilometers of the convoy route. Maria's background made her perfect for this assignment. Growing up in rural Montana, she had learned to shoot when she was 8 years old. Her father, a veteran himself, had taught her that shooting wasn't just about pulling a trigger. It was about patience, breathing, understanding wind and weather conditions. By the time she enlisted at 18, she was already out shooting most recruits at basic training. The convoy below began moving again after a brief security halt. Maria watched through her scope as the lead vehicle, a heavily armored MRAP, resumed its steady pace along the dusty road. The vehicles maintained proper spacing, their gunners alert and scanning for threats. Everything looked routine, but Maria's instincts told her to stay sharp. As the convoy approached a narrow section of the road where rocky outcroppings created natural choke points, Maria's training kicked in. These were exactly the kind of locations where ambushes typically occurred. She adjusted her position slightly, getting a better view of the high ground on both sides of the road. Her radio came alive again. Overwatch, we're seeing some disturbed earth near grid 234567. Could be recent digging. Request you keep eyes on our 6 as we pass this location. Maria immediately shifted her scope to scan the area behind the convoy. Fresh tire tracks in the sand caught her attention. They were leading away from the main road toward a cluster of abandoned buildings about 800 meters to the east. The tracks were recent, probably made within the last few hours. She made a mental note of the location while continuing to scan for immediate threats. The convoy was now entering the most dangerous section of their route, a valley where the road curved around a large hill. Visibility was limited, and there were numerous positions where enemies could hide. Through her scope, Maria noticed something that made her heart rate increase. On a ridge opposite her position, she caught a brief reflection of light. It was only visible for a split second, but her trained eye recognized it immediately. Someone was using optical equipment over there, possibly watching the convoy just as she was. Maria carefully adjusted her scope and focused on the area where she had seen the reflection. The distance was approximately 200 meters across the valley. At first, she saw nothing but rocks and scrub vegetation. Then, movement caught her eye. A figure in desert camouflage was repositioning behind a large boulder. The person appeared to be carrying a weapon. Her pulse quickened as she realized this was not a friendly observer. The position was perfect for an ambush, with clear fields of fire down into the valley where the convoy would pass. Maria needed to make a decision quickly. The convoy was less than 5 minutes away from the kill zone. She pressed her radio transmit button. Convoy leader, this is Overwatch. Possible hostile observer on ridge line bearing 087 degrees from my position. Recommend you halt movement while I investigate. The convoy leader responded immediately. Overwatch, we copy. Convoy is halting. Can you confirm hostile intent? Maria continued watching through her scope. The figure was now clearly visible, and she could see he was carrying what appeared to be an RPG launcher. Worse, she spotted a second person moving into position about 50 meters away. They were setting up for a coordinated attack on the convoy. The situation was becoming critical. The convoy was stopped in an exposed position, making them sitting ducks if the ambush was triggered. Maria had to act fast. She checked her range estimation one more time. 1,200 meters was a long shot, especially in the shifting desert wind, but it was well within her capabilities. As she prepared for what might become a life-or-death engagement, Maria's mind flashed back to her training. Her instructors had always emphasized that the most important shot a sniper could take was often the first one. Miss that shot, and the enemy would know your position. Everything would change in an instant. The wind was picking up, blowing from her left at approximately 8 miles per hour. She adjusted her scope accordingly and controlled her breathing. The convoy below remained motionless, their crews probably scanning the area with growing tension. Every second that passed increased the danger for everyone involved. Through her scope, Maria watched as the first hostile figure raised his RPG launcher and began aiming toward the convoy. There was no longer any doubt about his intentions. The time for observation was over. It was time to act. From darkness, she took out the threat. Part 2. Maria's finger moved to the trigger as she made final adjustments to her scope. The crosshairs settled on the center mass of the hostile figure with the RPG launcher. At 1,200 meters, even the smallest error in calculation could mean the difference between stopping the threat and missing completely. She had one chance to get this right. Her breathing slowed to a controlled rhythm. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. On her third breath cycle, she reached the natural respiratory pause where her body was most stable. This was the moment she had trained for thousands of times. The moment where everything else disappeared except the target and the shot. The M4 sniper rifle bucked against her shoulder as she squeezed the trigger. The sound echoed off the rocky walls of the canyon, but Maria was already watching the impact through her scope. The bullet struck the hostile fighter center mass, dropping him instantly. The RPG launcher clattered down the rocks as his body went limp. Immediately, Maria shifted her aim to the second target. The other fighter had heard the shot and was now moving rapidly, trying to find cover behind the scattered boulders. But Maria had already calculated his likely escape route. She led her target, accounting for his movement speed and direction. Her second shot rang out across the valley. This time, the bullet caught the moving target as he dove for cover. He tumbled forward and didn't get back up. The immediate threat to the convoy had been eliminated, but Maria knew this was probably just the beginning. Her radio crackled urgently. Overwatch, convoy leader here. We heard shots from your direction. What's your status? Convoy leader. 2 hostile fighters neutralized on the eastern ridge. Both were carrying anti-tank weapons and were preparing to engage your position. You are clear to move, but maintain heightened alert. There may be additional hostiles in the area. As the convoy began moving again, Maria continued scanning the surrounding terrain. Her successful shots had revealed her general position to any other enemy fighters in the area. Standard procedure would be to relocate immediately, but the convoy still needed Overwatch protection through the remaining dangerous terrain. She noticed increased radio chatter on the enemy frequencies her equipment was monitoring. The hostile forces were definitely reacting to the loss of their ambush team. Maria counted at least 3 different voices on the communications, suggesting there were more fighters in the area than initially suspected. Through her scope, Maria spotted movement near the abandoned buildings where she had seen the tire tracks earlier. Several figures were moving between the structures, and one appeared to be carrying a mortar tube. The distance was extreme, nearly 400 meters, but they were positioning themselves to fire indirect rounds at the convoy. The situation was escalating beyond what she could handle alone from her current position. Maria made a tactical decision that went against standard sniper protocol. Instead of remaining hidden and observing, she chose to take aggressive action to protect the convoy. She adjusted her scope for the increased range and began engaging the mortar team. Her first shot missed, kicking up dust near the building. The enemy fighters immediately began looking for cover, but Maria was already adjusting for her second shot. This one found its mark, and she saw one of the figures drop behind a low wall. The return fire came faster than expected. Bullets began striking the rocks around her position as the remaining enemy fighters located her muzzle flash. Maria quickly gathered her equipment and began moving to a secondary position she had identified earlier during her pre-dawn reconnaissance. Moving while under fire was one of the most dangerous things a sniper could do, but staying in a compromised position would be suicide. Maria low-crawled along the ridgeline, using the natural terrain features to mask her movement. Bullets continued to crack overhead as she made her way to better cover. From her new position, Maria could see that the convoy had encountered additional problems. An improvised explosive device had detonated near the lead vehicle, though it appeared to have been a small charge that only damaged one of the tires. The convoy had stopped again, this time to assess damage and treat any injuries. This pause made them vulnerable to the mortar fire that Maria knew was still being prepared in the buildings below. She had to act quickly to eliminate that threat before the enemy could get their indirect fire weapon operational. Maria set up her rifle in the new position and began engaging the mortar team again. The increased range made accurate shooting extremely difficult, especially with the wind conditions that had shifted since her initial shots. But she had trained for exactly these kinds of challenging scenarios. Her next 3 shots were carefully spaced, each one forcing the enemy mortar team to take cover and disrupting their ability to set up their weapon. On her 4th shot, she scored another direct hit, eliminating what appeared to be the team leader. The radio in her ear came alive with urgent communications. "All units, this is command. We're tracking multiple hostile signals converging on your location. Be advised that additional enemy forces are moving in from the north and west. Estimated time to contact is 15 minutes. Maria realized that what had started as a simple convoy escort mission was turning into a major engagement. The enemy had been waiting for this convoy, probably with intelligence about its route and timing. This wasn't a random ambush, but a carefully planned attack. She began rapidly engaging targets of opportunity, using her elevated position to maximum advantage. Each shot was calculated not just for immediate effect, but for psychological impact on the enemy forces. By maintaining accurate long-range fire, she was forcing them to keep their heads down and disrupting their coordination. The convoy below was making good progress, despite the ongoing harassment. The lead vehicle had been repaired quickly, and they were moving through the most dangerous section of the route. But Maria could see dust clouds in the distance that indicated more vehicles were approaching, probably carrying reinforcements for the attacking force. Her ammunition was running low after the sustained engagement. She had started the mission with 60 rounds and was now down to fewer than 20. Each shot had to count more than ever. Maria made the decision to focus on high-value targets only, saving her remaining ammunition for the most critical threats. As the convoy approached the end of the valley, Maria spotted the most dangerous threat yet. A technical truck mounted with a heavy machine gun was positioning itself to cut off the convoy's escape route. The gunner was already traversing his weapon toward the armored vehicles below. This was the shot that would determine whether the convoy made it to safety or was trapped in the kill zone with reinforcements closing in from multiple directions. From darkness, she took out the threat. Part 3. Maria steadied her rifle as she prepared for what would be her most critical shot of the entire engagement. The technical truck with its mounted heavy machine gun represented an immediate and deadly threat to the entire convoy. If that gunner opened fire, the .50 caliber rounds would tear through the lighter armored sections of the vehicles below. The range was 900 meters, and the target was partially concealed behind the truck's armor plating. Maria would need to place her shot with surgical precision to neutralize the gunner without hitting the vehicle's fuel tank, which could create a massive explosion that might endanger the convoy with debris and burning fuel. She controlled her breathing and found her natural point of aim. The crosshairs settled on the exposed upper torso of the machine gunner. Through her scope, she could see him making final adjustments to his weapon, preparing to engage the convoy. Time was running out. Maria squeezed the trigger with steady, controlled pressure. The rifle fired, and she immediately saw the impact. The gunner slumped forward over his weapon, no longer a threat, but her relief was short-lived as another fighter quickly moved to take his place at the machine gun. Without hesitation, Maria worked the bolt of her rifle and chambered another round. The replacement gunner was already familiar with the weapon and was bringing it to bear on the convoy much faster than the first man had. Maria had perhaps 10 seconds before he would open fire. Her second shot at the technical truck found its mark as well. The new gunner fell backward off the vehicle, leaving the heavy weapon unmanned. Maria had bought the convoy precious time, but she could see more enemy reinforcements arriving in vehicles from the north. Her radio crackled with urgent traffic. "Overwatch, this is Convoy Leader. We're taking small arms fire from multiple directions now. We need to move fast to get out of this kill zone. Can you provide covering fire for the next 2 kilometers? Maria checked her remaining ammunition. 14 rounds left. She would need to make every shot count to provide effective support for that distance. "Convoy Leader, I'm running low on ammo, but will provide what support I can. Move fast and maintain spacing. Don't stop for anything short of a disabled vehicle." As the convoy picked up speed, Maria began engaging targets systematically. She prioritized threats based on their ability to stop or disable the armored vehicles. RPG teams got first priority, then machine gun positions, followed by riflemen who were in positions to cause casualties. Her shooting had to be faster now, with less time for precise range estimation and wind calculation. Maria relied on her experience and instincts, making quick adjustments based on where her previous shots had impacted. Each successful hit disrupted enemy fire and bought the convoy more time. The running gun battle continued for nearly 20 minutes as the convoy fought its way through the ambush zone. Maria moved positions twice more as enemy fire concentrated on her location. Each time, she had to quickly re-establish her shooting position and resume providing cover for the vehicles below. With only 6 rounds remaining, Maria faced a critical decision. She could see a group of enemy fighters setting up what appeared to be a roadside bomb ahead of the convoy's route. They were working frantically to complete their setup before the vehicles reached their position. If they succeeded, the lead vehicle would almost certainly be destroyed. The range was 2,100 meters, and Maria would need to engage multiple targets in rapid succession. She had enough ammunition for maybe 4 shots before she would be completely out. Everything came down to this final engagement. Maria's first shot struck the fighter who appeared to be the demolition expert. He had been connecting wires to the explosive device and collapsed over his work. Her second shot hit another man who was positioning the charge for maximum effect against the convoy's route. The remaining enemy fighters at the roadside bomb site began returning fire in her direction, but they were shooting blind at the muzzle flash from her previous shots. Maria had already moved to a new position and was preparing her final shots. Her third shot missed as the target dove for cover behind a large rock. Only 2 rounds left. Maria forced herself to slow down and take more careful aim. The convoy was getting closer to the bomb site, and she could see the lead vehicle's driver was unaware of the threat directly ahead. Maria's fourth shot found its target, eliminating another fighter. One round remaining, and there was still one enemy fighter trying to complete the roadside bomb setup. He was working desperately, probably knowing that the sniper fire meant his position was compromised. For her final shot, Maria took extra time to ensure perfect placement. She controlled her breathing, compensated for wind and distance, and squeezed the trigger with the same precision she had used thousands of times in training. The last fighter dropped, and the incomplete roadside bomb posed no further threat. As her ammunition ran out, Maria watched the convoy successfully clear the ambush zone and continue towards safety. Her radio came alive with confirmation that all vehicles and personnel had made it through without serious casualties. The mission was a success. Maria began the long process of safely extracting from her position. She carefully cleaned her rifle and packed her equipment, erasing any signs of her presence on the ridge. The walk back to the extraction point would take her most of the day, moving carefully to avoid any remaining enemy forces in the area. Later, during the mission debrief, intelligence officers would estimate that Maria's actions had prevented the destruction of at least 2 convoy vehicles and saved multiple lives. Her accurate long-range shooting had disrupted a carefully planned ambush and allowed critical medical supplies to reach their destination. The convoy commander would put Maria in for a commendation, citing her exceptional marksmanship and tactical decision-making under extreme pressure. But for Maria, the real reward was knowing that her fellow soldiers had made it home safely because she had done her job when it mattered most. As she walked through the desert toward her extraction point, Maria reflected on the engagement. Every shot had been necessary, and every decision had been made with the safety of the convoy as her primary concern. This was what she had trained for, and when the moment came, she had been ready. The mission demonstrated the critical importance of skilled marksmanship in modern warfare, where a single, well-placed shot could change the entire outcome of an engagement. Maria's actions that day would become a case study in sniper tactics and the value of precision fire support in convoy operations.